Happy Monday, my friends, and it is no ordinary Monday. It is the 25th episode of the Marc Clair Show. You've been here with me, at least a lot of you have been with me for the last 25 weeks as I do my best, do my darndest to dive deeper, to dive below the surface, to get to the heart of matters and help you navigate this reality, both in the material and spiritual sense. And we do definitely tackle both here today, both in general, I should say, but I guess both here today as well with my guest, someone who I've been a fan of for a long time, and someone who's really come to light in the last couple of years with a lot of his outspokenness, and that is comedian Jim Breuer. I'm so excited to be talking to him today, of course. Subscribers, premium members of the Marc Clair Show, which you can join on Patreon, Subscribestar, Rockfin. Find all those links at marcclair.com, marcclair.com. They already heard this discussion. In fact, they heard the extended version, including the smoke-filled room segment, where we just get even wilder than we do in the main show. I know you're going to enjoy this conversation. Before we get to it, though, I got to remind you about our fantastic sponsors at foxandsons.com, Fox, the letter N, SONS.com. My man, Stephen Fox, started this company because he had great memories having coffee with his father. So he started this company to share those same passions and have more memories with his sons while teaching them about business as well. You can get a discount through me by using discount code MCS. Think Marc Clair Show. That gets you 18% off your order. So before you go any further, pause this interview, head over to Fox and Sons, Fox, the letter N, SONS.com. Find yourself a nice bag of coffee. I'm really enjoying this Costa Rican honey prep that my man Steven just sent me. It is smooth, smooth, smooth. Get yourself a bag of whatever looks nice to you. I've been loving the Den Blend Bark. That's the dog version. Den Blend Dark as well. So check them all out, foxandsons.com. That being said, enjoy my conversation with Jim Breuer. My guest today is an actor, comedian, podcaster. You may know him from Saturday Night Live. You might know him from Half Baked if you were a stoner in the 90s, like someone we're not going to mention. You may know him from his latest venture on Jim Breuer's Bruniverse podcast. I'm so pleased to welcome the one and only Jim Breuer. Jim, welcome to my show.
How you doing, Mark? And
I'm doing awesome.
All your followers and listeners.
Thank you. Excellent. Jim, a lot of directions to go with you. It's been a crazy career, I guess, a crazy life, so to speak. Last couple of years being a little bit crazier for all of us, I guess. But before we get into all of that stuff, I just want to get to know you a little bit better. So I guess a good place to start would be just figuring out just where this bug started for you, this bug to speak out, not just, politically now, but just in terms of comedy, in terms of wanting to connect to people. When did you first start to get that itch?
Now you talk, the actual.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking the origin story here. Yeah.
Okay, so cut to little fat Jimmy, and I used to always. My family was always really funny. Really funny, and there was always big gatherings. There was always big laughter, but I didn't really get the bug for stand-up. Like I loved watching comedy nonstop. It's Lauren Hardy, Abbott and Costello, Three Stooges. I love slapstick. And then I think when I saw or when I heard an album in fifth grade, it was Steve Martin's "Let's Get Small," and it just kind of blew my mind. Like, wow, you can make this guy's just being funny in front of a crowd. I thought records were all music, and I thought records like what is, and that I have to say probably was the beginning. And then seeing Richard Pryor on HBO when my parents were sleeping, and then watching George Carlin and then Eddie Murphy, and there was just like, I didn't need to know anymore. This is what I am. These guys. I am gonna be a stand-up comedian. And I was the class clown in school. I liked making people laugh. I get off on making people laugh, especially if they're miserable. The more miserable, the more I zoned in on you. The more. Yeah, I mean, I really did. I mean, the more, even at work, like I would go to work when I worked in Tarpon Springs, Florida, this place called Innisbrook Golf Resort, and there'd be a couple barmaids or waitresses that were just miserable, and I would like, my missus, you're gonna like me, and you're gonna laugh, and I'm gonna break you, and that's just kind of been, that was the beginning of it all, leading to be on stage, enjoying comedy, enjoying making people laugh, and then you're off to the races, and it starts becoming this whole other thing.
You've obviously
that's where it started.
Yeah, you've obviously been on some pretty big stages between your stand-up comedy, Saturday Night Live, and that sort of thing. But I'm curious, with what you just said there, does anything compare to that feeling of getting the miserable barmaid or what have you to finally crack a smile after like 3 hours of working on her?
That's the greatest. This greatest. That is to change someone's mindset and their attitude is way more thrilling for me than to sell out any arena, or sell out a theater, or sell out whatever. It's just, yes, those are high adrenaline rushes because you're performing, but to see a transformation in someone that's miserable, see a transformation because they're, whatever their home life is, and I bring some type of like, come on, man, look at the good side. Why you gotta, that's always been a super drive of mine. That brought me much better pleasure than any other stand-up gig. I love that.
Yeah, because I mean, your other shows, your stand-up gigs or what have you, the people are paying to come see you. So there's a certain amount of built-in, like, they're going to give you the benefit of the doubt. They want to come laugh at you in that case. But the miserable person who wants nothing to do with you, I mean, that's a real accomplishment, isn't it, if you can get them to laugh?
That's the one you want to crack. That's way more powerful, and it is powerful. That's a power. It's incredible to break their energy and put their energy in a different path.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did you take that sort of love for comedy, that desire you got from the Richard Pryors, the Steve Martins, the George Carlins, and actually turn that into a career? Because it's one thing to dream and another thing to do. So, I mean, how did you work your way up into the point of actually getting cast on SNL?
Well, first of all, I was really cocky. I think confidence, my confidence level, I just started something on my podcast. And we call it Vintage Brew, where I took all old tapes, like open mic night, all that jazz, gave it to my guys and said, if you can make this so we can show it, I don't know what's on here. And I'm starting to watch old footage of me, and I knew I was confident, cocky, but now I watch it like, oh my God, this guy is out of control. But I think that confidence level, to be dead honest, Mark, from the day I was probably about 16 years old, I knew there were going to be lights on me. I knew I was going to be in the public eye. I knew I was going to be a name that people knew. I just knew. There was no stopping it. So it started with open mic nights. And when I would go to open mic nights, I already knew nobody in this room was going to be able to touch me. Yeah, right now you might be better, but in a couple of years, none of you are going to be able to touch me. I'm just passing through time here. So I think that confidence, cockiness, definitely was a driving factor. I wasn't like, when I make millions of dollars, it was just, I'm better. And you're going to see how good I would show up at shows literally with the attitude of, you people have no clue. Then a couple of years from now, you're going to go, oh my God, we saw this guy at we saw him in that tiny little club that night. Wasn't even, oh my God, that's the guy. So I think that is the major contributor. And then as time goes on, you fail, and then you keep. I never took failure too personally. If I failed, my motto was and still is, oh, you have no clue what you just did. Now, not only am I going to get up and come back harder, but now there's going to be no stopping what I'm bringing now. And I still live with that attitude. It's you learn where you made a mistake. And so that I think when you see people like that, no matter what field they're in, they kind of stand out. And I was watching the footage of me trying to think of if I was in the audience going, all right, now, I mean, even when I walked on the stage, I command respect and I demand your attention immediately. So like, oh, wow, wow. The jokes were horrible, but the content was like, oh my God, what am I talking about? But that got me to on the road. The road was a pivotal part for me because I'm working with people that have been doing stand-up for years and years and years, and they would give me guidance. They would help me with my act. And then, hey, call this guy, and I'm getting more and more shows. And then that led to, hey man, you should go to LA or New York. And I went to New York, and pretty much in 6 months, I was on a national TV show called the Uptown Comedy Club. And it was an all-black show filmed in Harlem. I was a white guy.
Almost all-black show, I guess.
Almost all-black show. It was an urban show. And that show changed my life on so many levels. It was probably one of the greatest experiences I ever had in my entire lifetime. To this day, I have nothing but... It was such a great time in my life.
Did you have to reframe sort of the way you approach certain jokes or your comedy or anything like that, just because it is kind of catered towards a different sort of audience that might be looking for a different sort of flavor to their humor?
Well, yeah, because it was a sketch show. So the sketches, yes, we purposely would go to the urban, their audience, but I'll never forget. The crowd loved me. I'd walk through Harlem, and I have to say, there's no better feeling than walking through Harlem in not great areas, and people in the neighborhood are like, yeah, what's up, white boy? You gonna be funny, white boy? We love you, white boy. And that. So everyone, I definitely was given a lot of love there, but I remember the people that ran the show like, hey, why don't you come here and do stand up? I was like, oh, I don't know if I can. That's a whole different beast. And I do remember doing stand up there, and I actually, now that I remember it, I did the Apollo as well. I definitely had to try to appease, because my material was not really gathered for them, but I did a couple gigs. One gig got booed off the stage, and they don't just boo you off the stage. You got a whole crowd.
You got popcorn flying at you.
Oh, dude, they don't throw stuff at you. They all start waving for you to get off the stage. That is not a fun feeling. Where you've got
I think I'd rather have food thrown at me.
You got 1,000 black people stand up just doing this to you. Get off the stage. It's like, okay, all right. Well, thanks for having me. And then that led to, then I got into all the city clubs. And the city clubs, you get all the, vultures, the producers, the managers, the blah, blah, blah. And then I got a deal. I started getting what they call development deals, and then that led to some TV, and then that led to a big show I was going to do with Dave Chappelle and Home Improvement in the 90s, and then that led to Saturday Night Live. Now we're filming Half Baked, and it all started just from doing stand-up. And then right after Half Baked pretty much came out, I left it all.
And what was it? Was it about that moment, that peaking moment of Half Baked? What was it that made you want to take a step back after that?
The immoral lifestyle of entertainment in Hollywood, and the cutthroat stealing. Just there's no law and order. It's I sensed nothing but evil. Now, that's just me. And me and Dave Chappelle were close back then, and we would have long conversations. And I saw the stress Dave was going under. Like it was, and I saw a lot of Saturday Night Live too. Saturday Night Live was amazing when you were doing good and blah, blah, blah. But it also had this, you get a revolving door of superstars. So you get to see up and close and personal this blockbuster star and this big band and this actress and this actor. And then you see what they're like personally. And then you start seeing things that the public has no clue about. And then you go, well, how do they keep this secret? How is this not, how did everyone not know this? This is
Do you mean in terms of just what kind of person they are off camera and off screen, and then versus the perception that they have in public?
Correct. And not just an asshole, their sexual preference. You see like fake marriages and you're like, what? Like what? You see did you ever see the movie oh my God, Ben Affleck, where we get the Iran
Geely? No, that I said Geely, but no, I know which one you're talking about. I forget the name of it. The one where he gets the hostages out of Iran.
Yeah. So basically, they create an entire movie production with a premiere, blah blah blah, and it's all fake. Mm-hmm. You'd be shocked how much is just a front, like a pizza place. Like if I'm here's a pizza place and they go, that was just a front for like this $1 billion shipping and handling, sex trafficking and drugs. You're like, what?
You're like, that would never happen.
That's crazy talk. So that, and I just, for whatever reason, I grew up a very moral human being. To me, it was always God, faith, spirit, family. And then do work to supply for that, and do the right thing. Like just do the right thing. And I didn't see any of that going on. So it was quite the opposite. And that it never made me feel. I found myself way angrier and disturbed than really enjoying what I was getting out of it.
Does it start to feel like you're sort of living in like a Truman Show or something like that, where every little thing around you realize this is created, this person's crafted? Like, what is actually real in this industry?
Yeah, it's a little bit of that, but it's also a little bit of I can't explain it. Do you ever go into, you go into a home, or you go into whatever, a restaurant, and you go into a place and you get an instant feeling in your gut, and you're like, something's weird in here, or something's creepy, or something's dark, something. Right. You feel that. That's a feeling.
I walked into the wrong place today,
Yes. Well, I had a lot of that, and there's just a lot of seediness and a lot of there's a lot of that. I almost feel like there are times where I actually felt like this was a branch of like a government thing, whereas like an agent, think of the name an agent was not really, it was really coming from somewhere else rather than just like we make, but they were getting paid
to sort of craft a reality, not just guide a career necessarily.
Yeah, and I can't explain to you, like I remember huge agencies. I was with big agencies, and one of the big agencies, the guy sat me down. He's like, "No, listen, if you're really going to take it to the next level," and this was right after, all right, Half Baked came out, and now I just wrote a film. I wrote a couple films, and we were in the middle of the read through, and it was, the guy stopped. He's like, I don't need to read anymore. When do you want to film this? And right after that, it didn't go through, whatever. I remember the agent going, now listen, if you really, really want to make it, and you're going to have to listen to things and go to the places where we ask you to go. And I'm like, well, what is that? what is that? Of course. You mean like auditions? He goes, no, you need to meet the people. And he goes, or
There's this island, you see. Like,
right. Well, he didn't say that, but he was just basically like, or you can go back to home and, have a nice little family and do okay with your stand-up career, and which is a nice place to live. So I was like, I chose the latter. I can't describe the world. It's that industry. So I didn't feel good there. So with that said, then I went off, and now we have now we're having kids, and I went to Sirius XM, and I said I want to do a radio show, and I brought all my best friends. It was like the original entourage. It was people I grew up with. I had another comedian friend. I had my friend Larry, worked at FedEx. I had my high school friend Jimmy, both my high school friends, and that was based on I want to be home and watch my children grow up. I'm now home. I get to watch my kids grow up. I go and do this gig, and I'm still getting paid. This is amazing. And then around 2008, I started going back into stand-up, and then eventually, I did good doing I still do good doing stand-up. And then I've always kind of been on my own boat. I don't listen to the industry. I don't do what you're supposed to do and all that jazz. I live to be home, to be around the family, to enjoy life, to do, and that is, and then once COVID hit, I've had this other deeper calling for 20 years, and I was petrified of the calling, and that kind of opened the door for me, and it was awesome. And I've been doing it since.
All right, well, let's dig into that particular calling, because you mentioned that you've had this, I guess, sort of brooding in you for 20 years or so. So is it the kind of thing where you sort of had thoughts about the going-ons in the world before, but you just kind of stuck to the comedy for whatever reason and didn't really go out there with that stuff until this moment, which happened to a lot of us, myself included, where you said, okay, I have to not just shift the way I look at the world and look at what's going on around me. I have to shift what I'm talking about, because I can't stay quiet about the things in my mind, because look at this.
Well, yeah. And it actually started before that. Like I wrote people think this came out of nowhere. They're like, Jim's like all spiritual, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, I gave you the hints a long time ago. The book I wrote was more about making us all understand that we are connected in a deeper way. You don't have to go to church. You don't have to be part of religion. But if you do understand that spirit runs through all of us, and then we are deeper connected, and then there is this whole other life that we don't understand exists and existed before this matrix was created, before they were like, okay, you got to go to school, and you got to read a Bible, and you got to thing, and you go to college, and then you're a professor, and everything, and then you go and work, and you do everything we say. I mean, it's going to cost you money, and you want money, don't you? You want a boat and all that. Like, all right, well, how do we get back to living in a village where we had our own water and we had our own supplies, and then some assholes came along and then kind of distracted and made us do something else? So that I wrote a book, and a long time ago, it's called, they wouldn't let me go full deep and spiritual. So they were like, let's go. So I called it, I'm Not High, but I got a lot of crazy stories about being a father and a spiritual warrior. And what I would get from that is like, I love that book, man. I've seen you have that story with Dave Chappelle's dog. And yes, it's very entertaining. But then I would get, once in a while, I get people like, hey, man, I read your book. I really like the deep stuff you wrote, man. You should put more of that out there. I think that really connected, and that's what I really wanted.
Was it a conscious effort to sort of not sneak it in per se, but it wasn't necessarily how it was advertised? But you're like, all right, I'm going to put this element of myself into this.
1,000%. Yeah. And that again,
what happens is, well, I didn't go for it. I would tell some stories, and then, then you have the agent going, no, you can do that tour, or you can make $1 billion over here. And then it was just, and that's what happens. The dangling fruit comes, like, you got 3 kids in school, and you really should go after, and this might put you in arenas, or whatever the scenario. And then, but I always deep down was a little sad that I couldn't really put this out there, and not because of any other reason, but I know people need to hear it. They need to hear it. And I would tell them true stories in life. They're not from the Bible. They're not from I don't know anything about the Bible. I don't know and I have nothing against all that. My wife's Christian. She goes to church.
Were you raised religiously yourself at all?
Not at all. Not at all.
Because you had mentioned like God being important. So was it more of just kind of what you're talking about now too, like sort of a general spirituality you were raised with, more so than a religion?
Yeah, so I grew up, when I grew up, everyone around me was either Catholic. There was Catholic, Jewish, and Lutheran. They would all have to go to their church, school, whatever, every Thursday or Sunday or whatever. And none of them came back with anything like, this is what I learned about God. Or if anything, it was quite the opposite. I would get the Catholic kids going, you're going to have to do 30 Hail Marys because you don't even, like, you're going to, like, the devil owns you because you've never even been, you don't even know what Jesus, like, this is what they're teaching you? This is what they're teaching you. Okay. And then, I'd go to church, and no disrespect to anyone who's Catholic, and if it helps you, it helps you. Stand up that. Everyone does the saying at the same time. And we believe in the Bible. It sounded so weird, creepy.
I was raised Jewish, and it was the sitting and standing that always got to me. I'm like, can we just pick one? I don't even care which at this point. Can we just stop with the up and down, please?
Right. I just didn't. So growing up, just morally, I can feel deeper what was, and I think my mom probably was a major contributor. My dad was full-blown nothing out there. He was a World War II vet, grew up during the Depression, and 10 brothers and sisters. Mom died when he was a kid, so I can only imagine what he saw in life. He didn't talk about it a whole lot. And where my mom came from, her first husband was killed in World War II, and he was a Catholic. She was Protestant, and she would tell and she wouldn't go to church, but she believed in God. She was just like, you make sure, when God will punish you if you do bad things, right? But she would. I remember her going. She would do the Our Father who art in heaven. I don't know the whole prayer. And in that, it's like, what's heaven? It's like, well, that's where we go when we die. What is dying? Well, I'm not going to be here forever. That concept, as a child, when she said, I was like, what do you mean you're not going to be here? She's like, we all die. Like, what do you mean we all die? And some people will say a parent shouldn't do that. But I can honestly say it scared the life out of me. Because my little mind would go off like, what do you mean? Like, where do we go? What are you talking about? But at the same time, it really made me think, you mean we're not here for, like, we can leave at any time? And then you see people or hear about people that die. And death is the greatest contributor to waking your ass up to a deeper reality. You're either going to go, there is no God, or life sucks, it's unfair, or you're going to go, wow, we really all are, we don't know when it's going to end, and anyone could go at any moment in time. We better respect this lifetime while I'm here. And I think I kind of always had that vision, and I would see things in deeper meanings. And what I was going to say with my mom. So her first husband's killed in the war while she has his baby, and she went to the funeral, at the Catholic Church, and the priest would not acknowledge her or the son in front of the congregation because they were Protestant. And my grandfather got up, grabbed the baby and my mom, and walked all the way up to the priest. And he said, "You're no man of God, and neither is anyone in this room. You're all con artists." She had this man had a wife. This man had a child. We are people of God. You are all with your nonsense hat. I mean, he went off on the hat and the robe and blah, blah, blah. And and that was, hearing that story really made me wonder about religion. Like, if we're all on the same team of God, but yet you're going to condemn, you're not going to acknowledge a widow and their child, and that's the Catholic Church. And then you hear, a couple things. So I started believing that I would go deep and go, oh, so people are spiritual and there is a God, but people, demons, not like with the horns and all that, people with an evil drive, with no morals, that are soulless just for themselves, created all these religions so they can separate you and keep you from getting to a place that you are so powerful if you allow it. And that energy and that power and that consciousness and that instinct is a very powerful tool. And I started recognizing, when I tapped into that as a young person, a teenager, it made me wonder, that is why all these distractions are created, because they don't want you to think. Your government doesn't want you to know that. The bankers don't want you to know that. The people that control everything, media, entertainment, the banks, society, corporations, all 24/7, a billion different channels, all different bands, all different. None of it thinks about spirituality. What is pumped? Nothing but the anti. This whole country is vanity, ego, all the things that take you away from a deeper moral place. So.
And that's what we're told is important from the beginning, as we're raised in these systems in school or what have you, even from our parents who usually mean well. It's all about your career, setting yourself up for this, saving for college. And then going into debt so you can pay for this house. And then eventually you have your Social Security. As long as you keep pumping into the system, you're going to be taken care of. And it's ingrained multiple, generationally.
Right. And that's a big lie. It's a huge lie. It's the biggest lie in humanity. So, that is, I saw too much of the other side in the show business world, and it's everywhere. It's not just show business; it's everywhere. It's our government. It's absolutely everywhere. And that allowed me, once COVID hit, like, I had that drive to speak that way for a long time, but I had to do it, and I want to do it in ways where people can understand. Like, I'm going to tell you a true story. I'm not going to tell you in the Bible, and again, nothing against the Bible or anything like that. Like, when Moses did this to John, and like, no offense, but people zone out. Mm-hmm. Some people get something, but if I tell you a real story that when my dad passed, right? And when my dad passed, that was the worst. When my dad passed, that was by far the worst pain. I've lost a brother, a sister, best friend, because I've plenty of death in my life. So when that happened, I remember sobbing and praying in my house, going, God, like, what do we feel? Can you just like any type of show me, like, do we feel their energy? I don't need to see them again. I don't need to know. I know we're gone forever or wherever we go. He said there's but is there and I'm really zoned in on this. And as this is happening, there's a knock in the next room and it keeps knocking. So I go in the next room and there's this cardinal like up against the window, right? And I'm freaked out. And then he goes back to the tree and he just stares at me and he starts chirping. And then I go to walk away and and then it goes away again. So that, I'm a little freaked out. It's just, if I wasn't, was this bird going to be here no matter what?
Right.
But as the story continues, this bird now comes every single day and taps, and now becomes a part of thing with the house. Like, oh, it's grandpa and it's a joke. My kids were like, Grandpa, can you not bang on the window at 7 a.m? It's a weekend. I want to sleep. And we filmed it thing. And I would sit and stare at it. And as crazy as that was, but I was at this time, I was also still mourning my father really bad. I'd see an old man, I'd lose it. I'd see someone wheeling someone in a wheelchair, I'd lose it. So imagine this. A year and a half, this bird shows up in October. It lasts through the winter. This cardinal lasts through the winter. Then it goes through the spring, lasts the entire summer, every single day. Not once in a while, every single day. So now it passes a 1-year mark, and we have a little thing for this bird. It's a 1-year mark, Then
like a birthday party or like
yeah. We're like, and some people think I'm crazy.
Bird cake.
Like, right. So now it goes to a year and a half later, and we went on vacation, Turks and Caicos, and I was sitting there. And I had one of those cries. Everyone, when they lose someone deep, they have primal cries. Your mouth is open. And that day, I stopped at the cry and I went, "Oh my God, Dad, I am sorry. I'm letting you go. You're out of here. You go. I'm not holding on to you anymore. You need to go wherever you got to go. I'm not going to cry anymore. I need to grow up. I am so sorry I held on to you this long. I'm so sorry I held on to you this long." And it was a big release. And then we got home and, my father-in-law was watching the house. And the first thing he says, he goes, "Hey, man, that bird left sometime in the middle of the week." I went, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Yeah, it's gone." I went, "What?"
Wow.
And I know that's a weird story for some, like, "Oh, so you think that's..." It never came back again. I never had a cardinal in the yard again. I never had.
And that timeline lines up with like the exact moment you sort of said that.
Yes, it's weird, and he's like, "Oh my God, it migrated." And there's people that for you, if it migrated, it migrated. So I've got all these other heavy stories where like my life is coming to a bad place. I ask the powers to be, and this world shifts, and blah, blah, blah. So I've had these examples, and that's not a great example, but I've got powerful examples. And when I share them with people, it now makes them go, "Wow, that's interesting," because I always felt this, but I thought it was weird. And I think sometimes we think things are weird, but they're actually normal, and everything else is weird. But we've been taught to think or feel that way is weird. Where actually, what all of this is weird.
Right. I think too, like that story you just shared. I've heard throughout my life a lot of stories like that from individual people, but you never hear them necessarily shouting it from the rooftops. It's the kind of thing where, like you said, yeah, maybe you can point someone to a passage in the Bible. Maybe it'll move them, but it's not. It's very easily to write something off as myth or think in the abstract about Moses parting the Red Sea or what have you, and have that not really connect with you because you think, well, that's just some story. Meanwhile, if you talk to a real person that has a story like that, you can actually start to realize, like, maybe I don't know what's going on, but little things like this here and there, when you hear them from a lot of people, you start to say, okay, I don't get it, but there's something else. There's something else beyond this. What is that? How can I comprehend it? I don't know. I can just do my best.
And that's all you can do. And then there's, when you start getting into, I'm a big meditation guy. I'm a big prayer guy. And when I say that,
did you get into that stuff later, like on your own later in life, or how did you get into all that?
How did I get into that? I got into it pretty much on my own. And then someone taught me someone gave me great advice. They were definitely a God guy. And I would tell them stories and they're like, when you reflect, do you reflect? I'm like, yeah, I reflect. Reflection is huge in your life. You can sob, you get angry, like you need to get those emotions out. And you also get answers after that. And he told me the the greatest thing in life was the 3 S's. He goes, just remember 3 S's. S. Sit, be still, and be silent. He goes, your answers will come. You ask in general. Don't ask for a new car. Don't ask like, hey man, my kid's going through this and this and this. I don't know what I'm doing. And how should I think? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And he goes, then you sit, you be still, and you be silent with your thoughts and everything. And it'll just come. And I know it sounds kooky, but almost like Bob Marley when he sings the song, The 3 Birds. Everyone imagines 3 birds and they're actually saying, don't worry. It's not that. What happens is you sit down and the sound of the birds and the sound of the backgrounds, everything, when you let your mind clear, all becomes one. And then your consciousness starts showing you things that your mind's too cluttered with, I gotta watch this on Netflix, and I go on my computer, dang it, turn on the station, dang it, we're gonna go here, we gotta make a reservation. When you take away all that irrelevant nonsense and you allow your consciousness to come out, it's not the birds talking, or it's everything becomes one, and then all that those answers come out and spirits come out. You will get little signs. It's amazing. It's freaking amazing. So,
and doing that every day can literally change your life. Like starting your day like that. Cause I used to just be and I'm still a maniac, but I don't do this all the time, but I used to just start every day, opening my phone and going on Twitter and just firing away. And next thing you know, it's like hours later and I'm still in bed doing this stressful thing that is actually designed to stress me out. When I started, getting up, and even if I don't have time or whatever, I'll at least do like a 10-minute walk outside before I do any of that stuff. Even just that very, very minor change, it's night and day how the rest of my day goes.
I learned, you're 100% right. And I learned nature is the greatest healer. Even if I hate the cold. I hate the cold. But when I started really tapping into this, I would dress super warm no matter how cold it was. And I'd try to sit outside in the silence as long as I could, just sit there. And it was the most peaceful. Nature brings you peace because it's nature. It's natural. It's not man-made. It doesn't need your consumption. It's not sending you off to school. It doesn't need your money. It's nature. And so it's there to heal you. And then there's something about, if you're in the woods, you feel, I tell people, like, you want to go on a hike? I'm like, no, I want to go for a stroll. And I may sit down. I'm not walking through the wood. I'm not walking through the wood. We're taking a time. We're going to sit down. If I feel like staring at something for a while, that brings a whole different element of consciousness at times. And it's powerful. It's beautiful. and it's a necessity. It's a necessity. It's healing. We need those thoughts. We need those feelings. But
what you're describing too has, like, I've spoken to other people on this show and other shows where people describe what you're talking about right now only through like psychedelics, mushrooms or something like that. But that's kind of like a turbocharged route, but you can achieve the same thing just by doing what you're saying, just by being in nature, just by achieving that silence without necessarily needing some fungus or something to give you a little jump start.
Well, listen, I'll tell you this too. I remember years ago, I remember doing mushrooms. There was mushrooms in public. Sucks. Not made for that. Did it and was in nature, night and day. And but I was never, the thing with mushrooms too is I wasn't addicted. I didn't feel like I had to do this again. It was like, oh, wow, I just saw a whole different layer of consciousness. And what it was, and I tell people, I can't describe it, but I will tell you. So I remember, we were at a bachelor party of all things. So we're in the woods, we're all camping. Beautiful day, and I'm walking, I sit down. It was like Alice in Wonderland. I started looking at flowers, wildflowers, and the colors. I could see the life of the colors. I started to understand Native American tribes, how they would say we're all connected in the spirits. I can feel and see the consciousness and spirit of the grass, of a tree, of a flower, of everything. And then while I was doing that, I sat down in the grass and I just kept staring. I'll never forget this. You know how like a dragonfly, just when you see a dragonfly, they're very erratic and they move quick and they do this. Well, this freaking dragonfly, I'm sure in real time was doing this.
Right.
But what I saw was him just like this. And he was just completely checking me out.
Intense eye contact from a dragonfly.
It was nuts though. And then he landed like I was sitting Indian style, and he landed on my knee, and he was just looking at me. And I'm like, oh my God, I can feel your thought process. I can, this is amazing. This is like the greatest film I've ever watched in my life. So what I took away from that was, maybe there is something a lot deeper that we don't understand. I had a friend, this guy, Joe Sib, I bring him on the tour with me. And years ago, and he knows me now, like everywhere I go, he's like, did you go on your hike yet? Did you go for your walk yet? I'm always on a walk. I'm always on a hike, no matter where we are. And I came back and like, Joe, I saw this thing with a hawk and blah, blah, blah. And he started telling me how his wife and his business partner sent him away. And he was having troubles with his eye. He thought he was having a stroke and all that. And he was tense and blah, blah. So he sends him away. And long story short, it was a spiritual retreat. And he thought he was getting massages, hot tub, and all.
You're doing 3 hours of hot yoga, pal.
Right. It's going to be amazing. So that's what he thought he was walking into. And what he actually, every day they gave him an assignment to meet a spiritual human being. And one of them was a Native American. And they went on this hike. And I don't want to botch it up for him, but at the end of the day, like, he found through this Indian a whole different layer of our soul, our consciousness, and how disconnected we are. And to this day, and the Indian taught him, listen, man, just touch a tree. Remember when you were a kid and you would sit under a tree and touch a tree and climb the tree? And why would you do that? Did you just want to be higher? Did you leave? You ever take a leaf and you look and he goes, you people, meaning us, are so disconnected from the earth, from the earth's energy, from the earth's power. All of you are. And to this day, his story is because he's such the opposite. He's like, dude, bro, LA, we're gonna move you. to this day, like we'll be on the road and we'll walk around and like, what are you doing? He's like, I just gotta touch this tree. But I think getting back to that is very important. I don't know how to, because they got everyone addicted worse than heroin into this matrix. How to be a billionaire, how to be a millionaire, be the best, or be all you can be, rather than let's be all we can be. Mm-hmm. Let me try to help you. You help me. Let me try to, oh my God, this one's done. Let's help this family. That's been ripped apart and torn to pieces. And you brought up something earlier about Twitter. You know, you're on Twitter. Mm-hmm. All of media, no matter who your favorite media to, all of it, social media, anything media, their one job, very well planned agenda, very well, like years in the making, is to control your consciousness, your energy, and your decision making. Mm-hmm. And it's doing a damn good job.
And the more emotional it can make you, high or low, bad or good, up or down, it's all good. It's more chaos for you. So that's going to take you off the path.
That's why I used to love the band System of a Down. Yes. I used to love System of a Down. How do you own disorder? Disorder. Brilliant. Those guys were brilliant. Incredible lyrics. So yeah, I've been on this path for a long time. I just haven't been very loud about it until recently.
I mean, was that like the sort of the main crux of starting the Bruniverse podcast? Was it like, all right, this is we're going to really bring this whole thing out in the open and just let this puppy fly?
Yeah. So the Bruniverse started because I filmed a comedy special, and it was, you know, somebody had to say it, and I was on a platform. A really awesome platform, and we started doing the pre-orders, and you know, we had a lot in a week and a half, and then I just came out with the whole, hey man, then they tried really forcing the vaccination, and I went, I'm not, if you got to show a card to get into my venue, I'm not playing it. Mm-hmm. We're done. That's not going down. I'm done. We're done. You guys, you're out of control now. You already controlled us from here to here. The war has begun. I'm walking away.
Do they want to vaccinate you as a performer as well? Or is it just like you could not be vaccinated, but everyone that comes to these shows is going to have to be? So you take a stand on that.
Correct. So they had to get vaccinated to come see me, but also venues. The venues were pushing it. The venues were also controlled by other elements,
because they have business licenses and whatnot. So there's a chain you can follow there.
And what blew my mind, how I saw how deep this was, I had an agent, and the agent said, so we had a big agent convention, and now this is 2021, maybe 2021, October 2021. My special was ready to come out. So the special is ready to go. And the minute I said none of this facts, the guy, he's like, listen, man, we can't show this here. It's owned by XYZ. We've got a lot of bands that are signed to this type of touring company, and we're going to lose billions. We got to drop you. I said, well, where can I show it? Well, there's not too many places because they're all controlled by XYZ. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget my agent saying, so we went to this big agent convention, and we're thinking we're definitely going to start hitting the stadiums around summer of 2022 and blah, blah, blah. And I went, now how would you know in the entertainment world when things are really going to be like?
Because right now they're telling us that we die if we go around each other. So you're saying, by summer 2022, we're in stadiums?
And not only that, where they're not going to be asking for the card, and they're not going to be forcing vaccinations. And I was like, how would the biggest money-making people with the, like, how do you know that? How do you know that? And that was more of a reason. There's many reasons to start opening the many eyes that need to be opened. And so the Bruniverse, that then opened up. I went to Patreon. And the Patreon, to get my money back, was, hey, if you join Patreon, I'll show you the special.
Mm-hmm.
But then that also opened the door of, you know what? Now I'm gonna start putting my real life feelings out there. And then I started having Patreon members interview me. If you join, you're the podcaster.
Mm-hmm.
And I was shocked how many people came on, and they didn't want to know about Saturday Night Live, and they didn't want to know about blah, blah. Like, this was a fan. I'm like, oh boy, what's this going to be like? And they were like, hey man, when did you start getting spiritual? Because, and then they want to know about that. When you took care of your dad, because I'm going through that with my dad, and they were all just people that wanted to know about life. And it became more about a neighbor coming on my porch and talking real life stuff. And that's when I realized, wow, there's a huge, way more people than I anticipated dying to start, that have these suppressed feelings, that have these suppressed visions, that have this suppressed consciousness, and they're dying to let it out, and they don't want to feel like a freak anymore. And
it's almost coming full circle too. I mean, in a way, it's like you're back to being the therapist, like when you're making the upset barmaid crack up or what have you. Now you're listening to someone's real problems and hopefully, making them smile along the way.
Yes, and they started making me smile, and they started giving me things like, wow, and that was amazing too, because that evens out I don't want to be above you because I'm the guy that was on the television. Just because you're on the television, whatever, it doesn't make you above anybody. Doesn't make you smarter, doesn't make you better. It's just like, well, I have this avenue. So that was an incredible connection, and still continues to be, where I'm and you start seeing the ripple effects of how this touches so many lives and keeps on going. And to me, that is way, way more important where we're at in life right now. Like right now, and people really need to understand they have so much power within, and such a deeper consciousness to connect with one another if they just give it a little chance.
Did you get any kind of backlash at all once you...
And for two backlashes. One was shocking to me. The other was not. I will. Now I don't check my social. So I made the video, like the vax video. I'm like, hey, I'm not doing this for us, and blah blah blah. God, blah blah. The agent called a couple days later, and he's like, this video is not going away. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's trending big time, and they're killing you on Twitter, killing you on the news. Like, I'm on the news? Like, oh, they are destroying you. Like, really? And, it'd be a million, how dare you? Your dead father would be ashamed of you. Your wife who's had cancer, now all of a sudden you don't believe in science, and you just saw the worst of humanity. And I was okay with that, because I understood they're nowhere in life. They're still controlled by the monster, and that's okay. But the one that really stuck out to me, and I won't throw names out, right as that video ended, I get a phone call. And when I got a phone call from this person, and they're a big comedian, and I was like, Now, I've talked with this person a couple times. It's usually just kind of small talk and, hey, what's up? Did you hear what happened to this person? Blah, 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 da, 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 little things. But I see this phone call and I went, this is odd for this person to be calling me right now. And they proceeded, and thank God I recorded the conversation. It's like, just in case. So I had a hunch of like, yeah, we're going to record it. So I took my iPad, I hit record. I'm like, hey, man, what's up? And it went from, hey, I just figured I'd give a call to, you got to be careful. And I don't know where you get your information. So it turned into this person called to reprimand me and say I'm reckless and the venue should have masks and blah, blah, blah. And I went, well, dude, we're not going to. I said, listen, I think you're one of the greatest, but I'm going to tell you right now, we're never going to see eye to eye. So you can yell and scream all you want. We're just not going to. We're not, and he tried another debate and blah, blah, blah. And I'd give him another angle and he'd fight it and blah, blah, blah. Like,
this was someone who you weren't super close friends with or anything, right? So like, is it a person who would normally call you with advice, I guess is the question here, right?
No. But someone that would call like, hey man, blah, blah, you want to hang? Or, okay.
So not strange to get a phone call necessarily, but strange for one to go in that sort of direction.
100%. And then the same person, I made a video, oh my God, probably like a year ago now, where it was about a circus. I said, hey man, are you enjoying the circus? And then I gave examples of what's going on in the media and all this jazz. And I went, if you don't understand, if you don't want to get out of the circus, that's okay. But just at least understand you're in one. And that's all it was. It wasn't political. It wasn't whatever. And then this person again reached out and was like, it was the first time I started believing in cloning. Because
it's literally what I was thinking. I was literally thinking, like, is this like your Agent Smith? Is this the agent assigned to you, like to pull you back in?
It weirded me out because, like, this person does not put this out there. This person's almost quite the opposite. They made a living on not being this way, more like a tough guy, whatever they put out there. And I'm like, are you editing me? You're editing me. You're
like not just editing my comedy special or a joke, editing my life.
You're editing my video. And so I sent them back a video and I basically said, hey man, I appreciate you reaching out, but in all due defense, would you like me from now on to check with you before I put something on my social media that has nothing to do? Like, I've never had that with anyone. And the fact that it was this person, really, it was bizarre. It was really bizarre. And then it made me thought, like, okay, either you're a fraud and you pretend you're something and you're not, or maybe you are cloned. Maybe you're a whack job. Like, I don't know. And I haven't really talked to that person since. I'm sure we'll cross paths. We're going to have to eventually.
Well, you have to do the clone test if that happens. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure there's a series of questions you can run.
But that is the first time I ever was really. I thought it was weird. I thought it was extremely bizarre. And then I thought, oh, well, maybe this person just doesn't want to get off their mountain. Maybe they just made it to the mountain and they roll with people on the mountain. They think they're special. Ego would do that to you, where you now think you're the spokesman for other humanity. And, at the time being, I wanted to really bring them back to size. And it was like, all right, there's something. But that's the only pushback that I was intrigued by. Media, I expected. Certain family, I expected. People, you don't care about humanity. Knock yourselves out. I could care less. This person, that's the only one where I was like, wow, that's weird.
Just one thing I want to ask you about. We'll wind down and hop into the smoke-filled room to get a little weirder. But when you mentioned them talking about summer of 2022, and as we can look back, like that is pretty much when stadiums did start opening up and stop requiring vaccines and stuff like that. So, how much do you think this whole thing was, timelined out way ahead of time to the point that a year earlier, people know exactly how it's going to play out?
Dude, come on, man. Fauci basically said, when Trump was about to go in, he's going to deal with a major pandemic. It's on video. They've been planning this for so long. And if you don't believe that, that's okay. That's okay. They did a whole thing with Bill Gates where they basically did a run through for all this. So they're so way ahead of the game. There's been movies on this. There's television programs on this. They planned this a long time ago. And you can't tell me for 1 second it wasn't very well designed, very well planned. They were ready for every single question, every single objection, every single pushback, and continue to be. And that is the part that's frightening when people don't understand that. And when you do understand it, it makes life a little more humbling. But yeah, 100%. There's nothing you can do to convince me this wasn't an extremely well-designed plan. Extremely well-designed. This was worldwide. Mm-hmm. This was worldwide.
How is one day people in multiple countries all around the world being told to stand 6 feet apart simultaneously?
That's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Powerful. You can't get any more demonic and evil than that. You can't get any more. That's slavery on a level that's unheard of. That's power. That's evil to its core. It's soulless. And that's why people say this is a spiritual war. It is a spiritual war that's been declared on you.
Well, indeed, and that spiritual war is pretty much the reason I took this direction with this podcast after doing something more political for almost a decade. And it's so I hope to help arm people for that. And of course, people can certainly, there's another tool in the arsenal that now I can make people aware of that don't know over at the Bruniverse. So I'll give you one more chance just to plug away on anywhere and everywhere they can find what you got going on with the Bruniverse. And then we'll hop in the smoke-filled room, have a little more fun.
Sounds good, man. Just go to jimbreuer.com. JimBreuer.com, and then the Bruniverse is the podcast that I do weekly. And that's it. You see me on tour. Tour is different than the Bruniverse. So that's stand-up comedy. And then the Bruniverse is the podcast. We go anywhere and everywhere.
All right, Jim Breuer, thank you so much for coming on my show. I really appreciate it.
Let's go in the other
Good
room.
Times. Let's hop on in. All right, friends. I hope you enjoyed my discussion with Jim Breuer today. A guy, I first saw him in the movie Half Baked sometime in the 90s. So just to think that I could be sitting here having a 90-minute discussion, 90-minute for our premium subscribers, of course, with this guy who has just some incredible spiritual insights and really sees the world in a very similar way to I do, is just completely mind-blowing. So it's definitely one of the greatest parts of doing this podcast are the people I get to talk to, the conversations I get to have. That pays for it in and of itself. Of course, you guys pay for it too. Our premium subscribers, again, you can get extended early access to all of these episodes commercial free by heading over to marcclair.com, marcclair.com, where you can join on Patreon, Subscribestar, Rockfin, however you want to support the show. It is greatly appreciated. Just being here, listening to this show is greatly appreciated, especially those of you who've been with me from the beginning. I know a lot of you came over from Lions of Liberty. To me, this is a milestone moment, a milestone episode, not just because it's a nice number of 25, but having Jim Breuer, having someone like that on is just, it means a lot to me. So I really appreciate all the people, especially Magoo, one of my great supporters who helped set this up. He's a patron of Jim Breuer's, so he has a little bit of that extra access. You know what I mean? So I really appreciate Magoo setting this up for me. You are the man. And thank you all for tuning in, for being with me on this, sorry, Buck Johnson, I apologize, on this journey known as the Marc Clair Show. That being said, the journey shall continue. Tune in next week. We're going to have even more fun. Things are going to get weirder and wilder from here. Don't you worry. Until next time, friends, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.